Let's do some math. In Virginia, there are 40 senators in the upper chamber and 100 delegates in the lower chamber for a total of 140 legislators. Now, let's say you get a 15-minute meeting with each one of them, and let's say each one is running 10 minutes late, which happens, and it takes you 5 minutes to walk between offices. This means you have to dedicate 30 minutes to each legislator just to introduce your policy to them. Now, 30 minutes times 140 legislators equals 4,200 minutes or 70 hours. And that's in Virginia. Some of these states have a lot more legislators. Now, let's be honest. Unless you're a well-funded lobbyist or have a bunch of volunteers, you're not going to be able to meet with every legislator. You definitely need to meet with those key legislators on the committees that will hear your bill, but what about everyone else? You want legislators to know about your policy proposal. You want them to be aware of your organization. But how do you do this? One-pagers with legislative priorities. Yes, in today's
Better advocacy in 10 minutes or less.
We're getting ready for session by seeing how you can craft the best one-pager for your legislative priorities. Now, there are 3 parts to this one-pager. The first part, that's your organization's info. The second part are your organization's guiding principles. And the third part are the bills that your organization is supporting, opposing, or monitoring. All right, let's start with your org's info. Now, this may seem obvious, but I've gotten one-pagers that didn't have an organization's name, contact person, phone number, or an email. I mean, you want all of these on your one-pager because once you leave it, if the staffer or legislator can't identify where a one-pager came from, it's going to end up in the trash. Even if you're on opposite sides of a partisan issue, they'll keep your one-pager because the staff wants their legislator to have a full understanding of the issue. They may even follow up with you to ask questions. And this is why you always want to include your organization's contact information. When they reach out to you, it helps you build that relationship that then you can use to influence them in the future. What's the best way to do this? Put your logo at the top and your contact information at the bottom. That way they see who it's from, but you can keep it visually clean. All right, next up is your organization's guiding principles. Think of this as your mission statement, but kind of tweaked to focus on legislative action. The content will look different for each org, but your purpose is to summarize what you stand for and what you're trying to accomplish. An environmental group might say something like, the voice of thousands of Virginians speaking on behalf of cleaner water and skies for our native animals. While a parents' right group might say, we're protecting the rights of Maryland parents to make decisions about their kids' education. This helps staffers understand who your organization is and what your organization stands for. This helps them understand if your values or constituencies align with theirs and how much weight they should give to your stances. If you're a community-based organization, this can be a powerful way to grab the attention of legislators in the district that you serve. Or if you're a new org that champions liberal or conservative causes, it's a good way to gain instant credibility with legislators that share your views. However, never try to deceive legislators in your one-pager. If you're a liberal urban organization, don't try to make it look like you're representing conservative rural voices. Not only will that cause them to distrust you, they'll see right through it and immediately disregard the rest of what you're saying. And the rest of what you're saying is the most important thing that you're saying. This is the list of bills that your organization is supporting, opposing, or monitoring. This should be a simple, easy to read section. Include the following details: bill number, patron, bill title, brief description, what you want them to do, support, oppose, or watch, and why. That legislative staffer should be able to understand your bill position, quickly enter your stances into their database, and be able to understand why you have taken the stance that you have. If the bills and stances are self-explanatory, let's say you're a gun rights org and you're against background checks, or you're an environmental org and you're against new coal-fired plants, then you really don't need to explain why you're against it. But if there is nuance to the bill or it's not obvious why you're supporting or opposing a bill, then you need to make your point clear. Brief, but clear. How many bills should you include? As many as impact your organization. I've seen organizations drop one pagers with only one bill, and I've seen them with more than 20 bills. My advice is if your organization has an opinion about a bill, then include it. All right, so you've created and dropped off your legislative priorities one pager, and that's it. You're done. Well, not really. You see, remember, bills get amended, they change, right? Some good ones go bad, some bad ones go good. Sometimes they end up somewhere in between. It's your job to update the legislators as these things change. Depending on the pace of the session in your state, I recommend a weekly update to all legislators with additional as needed updates to those key committee members. You can do this by email, but if you have votes coming up, I'd take the time to drop off the updated one pager in person to make sure it doesn't get lost in the inbox. The last thing you want is a legislative ally who's trying to support you to inadvertently vote against you because they didn't understand the bill changes. When you send these updates by email, you can use the original one pager, but highlight the bills that you've changed positions on because of amendments or new information. Now, you may be wondering, how do I figure out what bills I should be monitoring? Well, that's a great question, and we'll cover it next week in
Better advocacy in 10 minutes or less.